very important subject, reservation policies and Indian Constitution. Now, what is the history of reservations? Now, if you look at the history of reservations, you will find that reservation policies were introduced by some of the princely states and then they were introduced by the British. So, Tamil Brahmins had the first mover advantage in terms of their knowledge of English, though they were just 3%, but they occupied about 80% of jobs in the Mysore princely estate. As a result, Kannada Brahmins had an extremely low representation in public services. There were protests, there were concerns about the low representation of Kannada Brahmins. Accordingly, in 1918, the Maharaja of Mysore appointed a committee under the chairmanship of Chief Justice Miller to investigate and report on the situation and suggest measures to provide adequate representation of depressed classes. At that time, the term used was depressed classes. Thus, if you see this, that it is the Kannada Brahmins who are initially flagging the issue of their low representation, and therefore they contributed to the adoption of policy of reservation. Now, if you look further, you will find in 1921, preferential recruitment for backward communities was instituted formally for the first time in colleges and state services of Mysore. In 1921, reservation of government jobs for non-Brahmins was introduced for the first time by the Prince of Mysore, Krishnaraje Vaidya. Then princely states of Kolhapur and Baroda also followed reservation policies, and subsequently reservation policy would be adopted by Madras Presidency. So, since Maharaja of Mysore introduced some reforms with a view of giving larger share to Kannada Brahmins, Vokalingas and Lingayats besides the untouchable caste and Muslims, and due to this reservation, there was an anti-Brahmin movement in Tamil Nadu, and also Dravikanganam started demanding special quotas, and conceding their demand, the Madras Presidency granted reservation in government jobs and educational institutions. So, it is clear to you that there was a demand from Kannada Brahmins, then reservation is given to Brahmins, Vokalingas, Lingayats, untouchables, Muslims. So, there was a counter reaction in Tamil Nadu, and due to this counter reaction and anti-Brahmin movement, Madras Presidency had to concede and adopt policy of reservation. Then one of the biggest milestone in the modern Indian history on the whole question of reservation would come from B.R. Ambedkar, who was now leading depressed classes movement, and they demanded representation and reservation. Accordingly, Pune Pact was signed in 1932. Interestingly, Gandhiji himself did not sign Pune Agreement, and it was signed by Madan Mohan Malviya, who you know is also founder of Banaras Hindu University, as the representative of caste Hindus. Now, what did Pune Pact provide? Pune Pact provided for the increase in number of reserved seats from 78 to 148, as well as adequate representation for depressed castes in the central legislature as well as provincial legislature. Pune Pact was subsequently incorporated in the Indian Constitution, and reservation in Parliament and assemblies was initially provided for 10 years, and subsequently it has been extended. Now, subsequently, Ambedkar became member of Viceroy's Executive Council, and on his proposal, for the first time, 8.5% seats in central services were reserved for the scheduled caste. So, there is one reservation in assembly which had a time frame, and there is another reservation which is in jobs which does not have any time frame. What are the goals of reservations? what Ambedkar was demanding, what Kannada Brahmins were demanding, representation. So our society is diverse. It is good if society's diversity is reflected in the public institutions. This is the reason which is adopted even in United States, and diversity is considered as legitimate consideration in the admissions in higher education. There is no reservation policy, so to say, like us, but diversity will be taken into account in admissions. The goal of a reservation policy is to have an egalitarian society. The purpose is to bring unequals at the level of equals. Reservation promotes substantive equality rather than mere formal equality. We had discussed that in the last session. Now, what are the relevant constitutional provisions on reservation? We just discussed that to correct historical wrongs of denial of equality to certain sections of our population, our constitution not only promised justice, social, economic and political, and equality of status and opportunity in the preamble. We discussed this in the preamble lecture. But our constitution also incorporated equality in articles 14 to 18, it abolished untouchability in article 17, it favored opening of doors of Hindu temples for all sections of Hindus in article 25. And then constitution in directive principles created a positive obligation on the state. Article 46 says, state shall promote with special care the educational and economic interest of weaker sections of the people. A wider term is used, that a state will take special care of educational and economic interest of weaker sections. And then this article says, in particular of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and shall protect them from social injustice and all forms of exploitation. We had discussed in the last lecture, that's how SC/ST Act or Protection of Civil Rights Act were enacted. Then Article 335 of the Constitution clearly lays down that the claims, this is a crucial word, put it in inverted commas, claims of the members of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes shall be taken into consideration consistently with the maintenance of efficiency of administration in making of appointments to services and posts. So whenever a state is making appointment, it will consider the claims of members of SCs and STs, but these claims must remain consistent with the maintenance of efficiency of administration. Then we have created number of constitutional bodies to monitor matters and safeguards relating to SCs and STs and BCs, to inquire into specific complaints with respect to deprivation of rights of SCs and STs and backward classes. So we have a National Scheduled Caste Commission, Article 338. We have National Scheduled Tribe Commission, Article 338A. We have a National Backward Class Commission, recently established by Article 338B, when 102nd Constitutional Amendment was inserted in the Constitution. Who are SCs and who are STs? There is no caste in India which is called SC, or there is no tribe in India which is called ST. But this is an umbrella term. SCs includes number of castes and STs includes number of tribes. So term scheduled caste was used in Government of India Act 1935. That's why in one of the earlier lectures I had said Government of India Act 1935 is very important. That's why we are discussing it in details. These are the very same castes which were earlier called depressed classes. I refer to Pune Pact and Ambedkar being the leader of depressed classes. So what were earlier called depressed classes, they are now becoming scheduled caste. Clauses 24 and 25 of Article 366 define scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, and it is the President of India who will define through a presidential order what castes are to be included in these two categories. Now, initially only members of the scheduled caste professing Hinduism and 4 castes among 6, Kabir Panthis, Ramdasis, Sikligars and Mazhabis, were included in the list. In 1956, this benefit was extended to include all scheduled castes professing Sikhism. In 1990, scheduled castes professing Buddhism were also included among the scheduled caste. So, a scheduled caste person must profess Hinduism, but people of other religions can be included in the category of scheduled tribes. Subsequently, OBC reservation was also provided when Mandal Commission was implemented. Then in 2019, economically backward classes were also given reservation. Who are backward classes of citizens? Constitution gives no definition of backward class of citizens. Article 340 talked of commission to investigate conditions of socially and educationally backward classes. The first commission was appointed under Kaka Kalekar in 1953, and second commission was headed by BP Mandal, 1981 commission. Now, it was BP Mandal commission which recommended 27% OBC reservation that was implemented by VP Singh government in 1990. So, who are backward classes of citizens? I just told you there is no clarity how to define a backward class. If you look at Supreme Court judgments, in MR Balaji versus State of Mysore, Supreme Court said caste is not the sole factor to determine backwardness. In a state of AP versus Balaram, Supreme Court said a caste can also be class, that a caste as such may be socially and educationally backward. In a 1985 judgment of KC Vasant Kumar, Supreme Court said backward classes should be comparable to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in backwardness. And then the leading judgment, a 9-judge bench judgment of Supreme Court in Indra Sohani versus Union of India, where Supreme Court said class here is not to be understood in the Marxist sense. Backward class as a term is wider than socially and educationally backward class. And the court also said economic criterion alone cannot be the basis of backwardness. And the Supreme Court also said when we are providing reservation to backward classes, creamy layer is to be excluded. As you look at the judicial response to reservations, I think it is important that I take you to the very first case because it was a landmark case. It led to a constitutional amendment. So we had, in the history of reservations, discussed the reservation provided in the Madras Presidency. So there was a communal order of the government which prescribed the ratio by which government jobs were reserved for Brahmins, non-Brahmins, Muslims, Anglo-Indians and Christians. So there was reservation for almost everyone. It was implemented in 1927 And it was this GO which was challenged in the historic case of Champakam Dorai Rajan. In less than a year and a half of the commencement of our constitution, not one or two, but as many as 3 judges, 3 of Madras High Court and 7 of Supreme Court, struck down reservation in educational institutions. Reservation in jobs is an enabling provision provided in Article 16, Clause 4. But whether we can have reservation in educational institutions, in the admissions, there was no provision at that point of time. And therefore, what happened, after losing this legal battle, government brought in the first constitutional amendment to overturn this judgment. Interestingly, if you look at the facts of the case, Dorai Rajan, who had done BA from Madras University and was keen to join MBBS, had not even applied for the course. Her grievance was merely speculative, that since there is reservation, I may not get a seat. Though she was a Brahmin and there was a reservation for Brahmins as well. The simple argument was that communal GO violated fundamental rights provisions of Articles 15 Clause 1 and Article 29 Clause 2 that prohibit any discrimination only on the basis of caste, religion, sex, place of birth, language, etc. Government tried to justify its reservation policy on the basis of Article 46, which we just discussed, which is the directive principle. The 3 judges in Madras High Court authored 3 opinions. They were unanimous in striking down reservation, but they gave different reasons. State immediately went in appeal to Supreme Court. In Supreme Court, 7 judges, led by Chief Justice H.J. Kania, heard the matter and again struck down this policy. Supreme Court also rejected the argument, central government's argument, that this policy is legal because of Article 46, on the simple logic that directive principles are not enforceable and cannot prevail over fundamental rights. We will discuss the distinction between directive principles and fundamental rights in some other lecture. The court said it in explicit terms that directive principles had to conform to and run subsidiary to the chapter of fundamental rights. What was government's response? There were protests in southern states as a result of this judgment, and accordingly constitution was amended, and in Article 15 Clause 4 was inserted. What did it say? Nothing in Article 15 or in Clause 2 of Article 29 shall prevent the state from making any special provision for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes of citizens or for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. It is this provision under which subsequently all reservation policies in admissions will be framed. How much reservation can be given? What is the quantum of reservation? First of all, you should understand there is no fundamental right to reservation. What Article 15 Clause 4 or Article 16 Clause 4 provide is simply this. If a state decides to make reservation, you cannot challenge it as violation of right to equality. So reservation is an enabling provision. If a state wants it, it can give it, but there is no fundamental right for any reservation. We should also understand there is a myth many people think that reservation in jobs or reservation in admissions was confined to just first 10 years. No. That is reservation in legislature, in parliament and in assemblies. Here we are talking of a different kind of reservation. Constitution also does not tell us upper limit of reservation. But Supreme Court has laid down, consistently said that ordinarily reservation should not exceed more than 50%. Because Supreme Court believes that to have efficiency in administration, Article 335, which I just read to you, at least 50% seats should be available to general candidates. We should also understand there cannot be any reservation on religious grounds. Thus, the Muslim reservation in Andhra Pradesh and a minority reservation within 27% OBC reservation were also struck down by the Andhra Pradesh High Court. Now, how was OBC reservation in admissions implemented? A constitutional amendment was again made and a new clause was inserted, clause 5 in Article 15. What did it provide? Nothing in this article or subclause G of clause 1 of Article 19 shall prevent the state from making any special provision by law for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes of citizens, or for the scheduled castes or the scheduled tribes, in so far as such special provisions relate to their admission to educational institutions, including private educational institutions, whether aided or unaided by the state, other than the minority educational institutions provided in Article 30. So this 93rd constitutional amendment is talking of giving another enabling power to the state to provide for reservation in admissions for any socially and educationally backward classes of citizens, including private educational institutions. Central government also enacted Central Educational Institutions Reservation in Admissions Act 2006, which provided for 27% reservation in central institutions. That means central universities, IITs, IIMs, etc. Now here so far we were talking of reservation in admissions of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and backward classes, those who are socially and educationally backward. In 2019, a constitutional amendment was made and clause 6 was inserted in Article 15, which provided nothing in this article or subclause G of clause 1 of Article 19 or clause 2 of Article 29 shall prevent the state from making any special provision for the advancement of any economically weaker sections of citizens other than the classes mentioned in clauses 4 and 5. So now for the first time, an economic criterion of reservation is introduced for classes other than SCs and STs and BCs. And this provision also provided that this reservation will be in addition to existing reservation, subject to maximum of 10% of total seats in each category. OBC reservation was 27%. Now this reservation for economically backward classes, upper limit is 10%. Can reservation be given in promotions? Well, the brief answer is yes, as the law stands today. Now, reservation in promotions for SCs and STs was introduced in April 1978 for the class 1 jobs. Indian courts did not favorably consider reservation in promotion. They favored reservation in the initial appointment. Thus, in C.A. Rajendran, Supreme Court was considering a 1963 notification of the government providing there shall be no reservation in promotions for class 1 and class 2 positions. A 5-judge bench headed by CJI K.N. Vanchu upheld this policy that there will be no reservation for class 1 and class 2. In 1992, a 9-judge bench which looked basically Mandal Commission reservation, OBC reservation, again said that in future there will be no reservation in promotions. But ultimately in 2000, a constitutional amendment was made, reservation in promotion was brought back. In 2006, in M. Nagaraj's judgment, Supreme Court said state is not bound to provide for reservation in promotions. But if it wants to do so, it must meet the requirement of collection of quantifiable data on 3 facets. 1, backwardness of the class, 2, inadequacy of representation, and 3, general efficiency of services not affected. So if you want to give reservation to SCs and STs or others in promotions, collect data, quantifiable data, to prove that they are backward, to prove that they have inadequate representation, and to prove that this reservation will not adversely affect the efficiency of services. There was a huge debate on this judgment. Many people wanted it be reviewed. A 5-judge bench of Supreme Court in Jarnail Singh in 2018 rejected the review, but it modified P. Nagaraj's judgment by saying for SCs and STs there is no need to collect quantifiable data of their backwardness. The mere fact that SCs and STs are included in the presidential order will be taken as enough proof of their backwardness. So what did we learn today? Reservation is not negation of equality.